Shalom, everyone. Today I want to take a look at part 2. We're looking at Ephesians 6, verses 11 and 12, and what do we wrestle against? Father, we just thank you, Yah, that we can come under the full mastery of your shalom by being obedient in each and every area, Yah, of our lives. To allow us, Yah, to walk in the spirit of Elohim and Yahushua Messiah, to walk as you walked when you wrapped yourself in flesh and showed us how to walk it out. And that the one who would otherwise try to master our lives and cause us to sit on the throne in our own lives, then would be, we've resisted him and he will flee. Father, let us be found fully submitting to you, resisting the enemy. Hallelujah. In your name, Yah, who came to rescue us. Hallelujah. Praise Yah. So we were on Ephesians 6, verses 11 and 12. And I just wanted to reiterate the place that we left off last time, kind of the main word we were kind of looking at, which was the principality. Again, from Ephesians 6, verses 11 and 12. Put on the complete armor of Elohim, for you to have power, for you to be able to stand against the schemes, the craftiness, the wiles of the devil. Because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the principality, against his authority, what he's trying to do, against the world rulers of darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. So if you didn't see part 1, I would encourage you to go back and watch part 1, because it really lends itself to what we're going to talk about here. So the main word that we looked at last time was the principality. We see it here, Strong's H7225. The Greek definition is properly abstract, a commencement or concrete chief in various applications of order, time, place, or rank. I do have the Hebrew number there, but we'll go look at it in the Hebrew. That was the Greek definition. And we can see it here in Ephesians 6. Verse 12. It was G746. Again, there's the definition. And it traces back to the Hebrew H7225, which is a reshit, the first in place, time, order, or rank, specifically a first fruit. We saw in the ancient Hebrew lexicon last time that it was D, and here at the bottom it's the N, F4, beginning, the head of a space, such as the head of a river, or time, such as an event. We also see at the child root here the resh, the L, and the shin, the head, the top of the body, a person in authority or role of a leader, the top, beginning, or first of something. So it's about being the head. The whole entire root line is about being the head of the tribe, chief, or family, father, and we know who that is supposed to be. The head of Israel is El. The father of Israel is El. The husband of Israel is El. The head grants permission for the betrothal of his daughters and determines the inheritor of the tribe or family. The head of a person, place, thing, or time. He's the head of it all. However, since Adam and Hawa sinned, now we have a principality that is trying to master us in order to get us to sin, to in any area of our lives, be sitting on the throne of our own lives, so we're not fully submitted to Yah Elohim. Because once we fully submitted to Yah Elohim, we've resisted the enemy, and he flees from us. Not that he doesn't try to return for an opportune time, because he certainly does. So that's what we looked at in part 1. Very short, brief overview. I really hope you'll go back and take a look at it. Just because, like I said, it really lends itself to what we're going to talk about. So the next word in Ephesians 6:12, because we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against authorities, the principality, against his authority, what he's trying to do, against world rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual matters of wickedness in the heavenlies. So this principality's up to something, right? So we see in the Greek, it's Greek 1849 from 1832 in the sense of ability, privilege, that is subjectively force, capacity, competency, freedom, or objectively mastery, concretely magistrate, superhuman, potentate, token of control, delegated influence. We can trace it back to Daniel 4:34. Here we see it's the Greek 1849. We see who should have the authority in Daniel. And at the end of the days, Nebuchadnezzar lifted up his eyes, because he was sitting on the throne of his own life, as the authority in himself, as opposed to letting Yah be the authority that Yah was supposed to be. Babylon will sit on the throne of your life. Unto the heaven, and my understanding returned unto me, and I blessed the Most High, and I praised and honored him. You can come out of Babylon, yet still live in this world, and honored him, and liveth forever, whose dominion is an everlasting dominion. Yah's is an everlasting rule, and his kingdom is from generation to generation. But again, we see the opposite going on with the enemy and what he's trying to do and cause us to do. We see that, again, it's... Boy, I left all these as G's, didn't I? Well, we'll just go look it up. Hebrew Strong 7985. Well, I guess it's here. Not the Greek. It should be an H. Shulton from the Chaldee, H7981. Empire, abstractly or concretely. We see it's coming from the H7981, which is Shalit, corresponding to H7980. And then we see the H7980 is Shalat, a primitive root, to dominate, that is, govern, by implication, to permit. So I want to look at the word in the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament, which, if you don't have one, this and Jeff Benner's Ancient Hebrew Lexicon, great resource tools. Great place for understanding, whether you're brand new or whether you've been looking at the Hebrew understanding for a while. They're great resource tools. So the the Hebrew word, goes back to the TWOT 3034. And it says, have power, rule, dominion, having mastery or authority. This root appears also in the Hebrew because it's a Hebrew word and an Aramaic word, where it is called, this word here is called late, but a derivative of it, shalat, appears in Ugaritic as a byname of Leviathan. The Arabic form gives rise to the title Sultan. So we see it's related to, again, the Hebrew word H7980, and then we have a primitive root to dominate that is governed, by implication to permit. So this is the Hebrew word that it would be related to. As you can see, as it's coming backwards, we have Shultan, Shalat, Shalat. Why they added a noon to it and in the Aramaic is, I don't have an answer for that. So let's look at that Hebrew origin in the Theological Word Book. It's 2396. And if you have the book, it starts at the bottom of page 928. Exercise power over, dominate, have mastery. The essential idea of this root is to exercise autocratic control over. Resist him. To have one's way with anyone. Submit to Yah. Let him have his way in our lives. It appears with its derivatives 15 times in the Hebrew and 32 times in the Aramaic, where the meaning is similar to the Hebrew. Akkadian and Arabic use the root in a similar fashion. The Arabic word sultan is formed from the same root. The Ugaritic shalat is used as an epithet of Leviathan. Where's the proud crown of Leviathan? The basic meaning of the root is well illustrated in Nehemiah 5:15, in which the officials serving under the government of Judah before Nehemiah acted in a tyrannical, self-serving, domineering way with the people in imposing heavy burdens of taxation on them. The people were powerless to resist. We are not powerless to resist the enemy if we submit to Yah Elohim. In Psalm 119, 133, the psalmist prays that iniquity shall not rule over him. What a great prayer. He wants to be firmly established in the word of Elohim so that he can be free from the terrible tyranny of sin. Because that's all the enemy, if he can keep you in one place in your life where he is mastering you, you will then be in your own flesh the authority sitting on the throne in that area of your life instead of fully submitting to Yah Elohim from who you were immersed and raised from the dead. Written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Don't want to be blotted out. Resist the devil and submit to Yah in every area of our lives. He wants to be firmly established in the word of Yah so that he can be free from the terrible tyranny of sin. In a slightly modified sense, the verb appears in Ecclesiastes 2:19 with the meaning to exercise control over the fruit of one's labor. Then we have master, another word in the same root. Master, ruler, tyrant. Joseph is described as a ruler. Certainly he wasn't a tyrant. In Ecclesiastes 8:8, both shalat and shultan are used to state that just as a man has no authority over the wind to restrain it, so he is lacking power over the day of death. Isn't that interesting? Shalatet, imperious, domineering. This feminine adjective occurs only once in Ezekiel 16:30. It refers to a prostitute who behaves as if she were a law unto herself, a brazen harlot. So that's just a look at what the Theological Word Book of the Old Testament says, and it's this resource, I'm going to use the word again, really lends itself to giving us insight and understanding into some of the Hebraic ways and thoughts and how they understood what these words meant. Of course, we have the resource, the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon by Jeff Benner, which I always highly recommend. Highly, highly, highly recommend this. We see it's at 2843 V, and the V is rule. To be over or have mastery over another. What spirit are we walking in? The spirit of Yah? Or are we being mastered by the one who would want us to sit on the throne in our own lives? We see the action is rule, the concrete is master, and the abstract is realm. He is allowed to be used in this realm. Test us and try us by fire. Just as he did with Job. Go test him. He was a man of integrity and righteousness. So here's one of the verses actually that they brought up in that theological word book, Psalm 119, 133. And we're going to take a close look at this. Establish my footsteps by your word, and let not any wickedness, any iniquity, have rule, have mastery over me. Redeem me from the oppression of man, that I might guard your orders. Because we are not fighting flesh and blood. We're fighting that principality with the authority that is out there trying to master everyone, in order that they not be fully submitted to Yah Elohim, in order that they not resist him, so he can take as many down with him as he possibly can. And when his time gets shorter and shorter, he is going to come at it any way he can. He knows that in the last day that the pure language is going to be revealed among a people. And he knows what some of that is. We saw that in the last study. He was the covering cherub. He will sell you a bill of goods because he knows the pattern. He doesn't know the fullness of the pattern, or he'd be Yah. I mean, we wouldn't be having this discussion. But he knows enough that he knows the weapon that we're supposed to have, that Yah has given us. The sword of his word, he knows it. And he'll use it just like he did against Yah, who came to rescue us when he was in the wilderness. So, the psalmist says, establish my footsteps by your word, and let not any wickedness have rule over me. So establish. Establish is H3559. Apparently I didn't go through and change any of these. So we'll go look it up. Let's make this bigger. Hopefully everyone will be able to see it better. Well, we'll fix that. Okay, here it is. H3559 in the Strongs. It's kun, a primitive root, properly to be erect. Stand up tall. Having done everything, therefore, to stand, stand. To set up in a great variety of applications, whether literally, to establish, to fix, to prepare, or apply, or figuratively to appoint, render sure, proper, or prosperous. In the Ancient Hebrew Lexicon, we see it at 1244 JV. The action is to stand, the concrete is root, and the abstract is sure. You can be for sure and for certain that you will stand in that day if your footsteps walk in the way of the Spirit of Yah. Walk in the Spirit, not allowing any of this wickedness to have rule over you. We see it down here at the bottom. It's firm, to set something firmly in place, either physically or with words. The action is firm. The concrete is foundation. Are our footsteps established in the foundation of the Torah and the prophets, in which Yahweh came to rescue us, breathed in order to gave us these laws, these commands, and these right rulings that we should go in and possess the land one day, and go in and be his priesthood in the millennial reign? The action is stand, the concrete is root. Oh, we said that already. The abstract is sure. The pictograph Kaf is a picture of the open palm. The noon is a picture of a seed. Combined, these mean opening of a seed. When the seed opens, the root begins to form the base of the plant by going down into the soil. The soil of your heart. Are your roots going deep? Has the seed opened up, and is it flourishing inside of us? The plant rises out of the ground, forming the stalk of the plant. It's a seed. It's a stalk. It grows up, becomes a full head, and is ready for the harvest. A tall tree can only stand tall and firm because of the strong root system which supports it. And on another note, we're like trees that are supposed to be planted firmly by the rivers of the living water. The elders, the ones who give advice in the community. From this perspective, establish, cause me to stand firm, cause us to stand firm in our walk, physically and with the word that you've planted in us as we speak it to others. Establish my footsteps. The footsteps are pa'am. We see it there at the NF. It's a time, a continual beating of time, one moment after the other, also as a moment in time. A continual walk in the Spirit and obedience to Yah Elohim. One moment after another moment after another moment. Are we fully submitted and allowing Yah to have his mastery in our lives? Or are there moments in time when we're not resisting the enemy? We see at the root here, the action is beat, the concrete is bell. A repetitive beating or sounding as the hooves of a running horse, the beating of the heart, isn't that beautiful? Who's our heart beating for? Or the ringing of a bell. I think it's rather telling here in this root line. When we look at this bell, we see it's 6472. We'll go look at it real quick. I don't want to get too sidetracked on it. Go over here. H6472. And we'll pull it up. Sorry, my head's in the way there. Oh, we're in the wrong version. Let's go to the... We have to do it in the King James because that's where our Strong's numbers are. So it's 6472. So we see Exodus 28:33. We see it right here. And this is the garment of the high priest. This is the place where we see the bells that are in this root line. You can see it's in each one of these verses here. This is the place where we see the bell in this root line. Are we following in the steps of our high priest every moment, every moment, every moment, every moment in time? Is it this repetitive beating or sounding that we're making to the world around us through physically, through our actions, through the words that are coming from our mouth? Are we following in the footsteps of our high priest? Establish my footsteps by your word, H565. That is 1288 CN1. You see right here, it's word. We see at the C, it is action is speak, concrete is word. Chain are words to form a sentence. Also, a sickness is a break in the chain of the body. We see at the 2-letter root, it's a memlam. The action is speak, the concrete is word, and the abstract is to continue. A continuation of segments which fill the whole. Is each and every part of every moment of our lives, our heart beating, submitted to Yah Elohim? Are we continually each and every moment of our lives resisting the mastery, attempted mastery, peace looks like the world would give, of the devil? Are we resisting that so that he will flee? And that we're walking in the full mastery of Yah and his shalom? Every piece, part, and conglomerate that's been spoken in its proper order is what should master our lives and give us the shalom of Yah. That's what should rule over us. And let not any wickedness have rule over you. H408 is not. We see right here in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, it's 1254 AN, nothing to be without, to not to be. We don't want to be with any wickedness ruling over our lives, having mastery over our lives. I think it's interesting here, apparently an opposite of El. If there's any mastery over our lives by any wickedness, any iniquity, that is the opposite of El. That's why we submit to El and resist the enemy so that he will flee from us in whatever it is that's coming up at that moment in time. Any wickedness. Any wickedness. Down here at the 1242 JN, apparently I didn't remember to change many of my Strong's definitions. We'll just go right to the ancient Hebrew lexicon. Right here, the JN, all. The action is sustained, the concrete is food. We see at the 1242 line, the action is complete. The concrete is vessel, the abstract is whole. This actually is the bride line. So the bride will be complete and whole. There will be no opposite of El, no wicked mastery in the bride's life. The pictograph Kaf is a picture of a bent palm representing the bending or subduing of the will, because every moment, every footstep, every time after time after time after time, we subdue and we bend our will to the shepherd, the instructions that he has given us, and we are yoked with him. We are the sheep of his pasture. Combine these mean tame for the yoke. An animal or land is tamed when it has been worked and is complete and ready for use. Are we ready? Are we really ready for the fullness of the use of the master that's to come in the millennial reign? What area of our lives is he showing us that we have not bent our will to what he has given us in the instructions he's laid out for us, so that we can go in and possess the land? Because we've come out and now are able to come against the enemy, being driven out before us, because we're staying in obedience to him. Are we ready? Taming includes construction of the holding pens, putting the soil to the plow, the soil of the heart, harvesting of the crops. Are we ready for that harvest, that first harvest for the millennial reign? Milk or meat, one eats once the harvest is complete. Here's your picture of the marriage supper of the Lamb. So here's this wickedness, and it wasn't the word I was expecting for wickedness. Nonetheless, There we have it. It is Strong's H205. From an unused root, perhaps meaning properly to pant, hence to exert oneself, usually in vain. Boy, doesn't the enemy love that. You just keep on going there and everything is vanity, vanity. All is vanity to come to naught. Because in the end, it's going to come to naught. It's not going to be first resurrection material. Because the enemy is still having some part of mastery in allowing us in some area to sit on the throne of our own lives. Strictly nothingness, also trouble, vanity, wickedness, specifically an idol. We see in the ancient Hebrew lexicon, it's at 1014 JN. The first definition, here it is, El Wanun, is vigor, the power within the belly or loins for reproduction or creative work. The second definition is vanity, the use of the power within the loins for vain or other improper purposes. He will use the seed of Yah Elohim for improper purposes. He will do it by bringing a thought into your head. He will do it by using the people around you that don't even know that they're being mastered by the enemy. We're not fighting them. We're fighting the power and the authority. I'll call it the spirit of Leviathan if you don't like it. Oh, okay. The spirit of Leviathan, the proud crown, sitting as the authority on the throne in our own lives, as opposed to allowing Yah to master us in his shalom through obedience. The action is produce, to produce something. Something's being produced. It's either going to come to fruition or to not. The concrete is produce. We're supposed to be producing fruit, fruit that remains. Fruit that remains is not produced from a point of wickedness and improper use of the seed. The pictograph L represents the ox. The noon is a picture of a seed. The male searches out the female and approaches her for reproducing. See Jeremiah 2:24. That is a picture there. This can also be a search for the purpose of producing something. The enemy is looking to produce anything but obedience in our lives. Are we using the fullness of the seed that he breathed into the Shemayim, into the Eretz that he has given us in its proper order? Or do we allow the mastery of the enemy over our lives and then pass that twisted seed along for vain or improper purposes? We do not want that to have rule in our lives. We want the shalom of Yah, which comes from the obedience to Yah, that which he breathed. And he's telling us certain things other than, let me not say this, and I don't want anything to take this wrong, anyone to take this wrong. This is to not negate the commands of Yah. He didn't tell everyone to build a boat in that physical sense. He's telling us to do other things outside the commands, the laws, and the Torot. Because we're following the commands, the laws, and the Torots, we're able to move where he needs us to move. It's just like Paul thought he was going one place. Paul thought he was going one place, but yet he had a dream about a man in Macedonia, and that's where he needed to go. We should be so in tune with what Yah is speaking to us that we recognize it immediately if it's a counterfeit. So we do not want this other. We want to be producing fruit that's good, fruit that remains. Here's our word again. To be over or have mastery over another. So who are we allowing to have mastery in our lives? He's gonna come. You need to resist him. It wouldn't say submit to Yah and resist the enemy. If he wasn't going to come, we wouldn't have anything to resist. He was looking for an opportune time after he tried. Yah who came to rescue us in the wilderness. He's going to be looking for an opportune time, an opportune moment. That's why we need to be walking in the footsteps. Our footsteps need to mimic those of our high priest, Yah who came to rescue us. Moment by moment by moment by moment. In what we do physically and what we say. We should be walking out the peace and shalom of the message of Messiah. Let's take a look at Colossians 3, verses 1 through 17. If then you were raised with Messiah from a watery grave, died to the old man, seek that which is above, where Messiah is seated at the right hand of Elohim as his power, his strength, and his authority. There is not a separate seat sitting at the right hand of Elohim. It's a picture of his power, his strength, and his authority, the word in its proper order. Seek the word in its proper order. Mind that which is above, not that which is on the earth. Mind spiritual wisdom, not earthly carnal wisdom. For if you have died and your life has been hidden with Messiah in Elohim, for you have died and your life has been hidden with Messiah, him who came to rescue you, that showed you how to walk it out, the anointed high priest, who was from the very beginning. The first sacrifice was made by him in the garden. Follow his footsteps of shalom. The anointed King of Kings, the anointed greatest prophet who planted that first seed in its proper order. Hide yourself in that. We all need to hide ourselves in that. When the Messiah, who is our life, who is everything we should be feeding upon in order to sustain us, is manifested, then you also shall be manifested with him in esteem. Are we going to be with him? Therefore, put to death your members, which are on the earth: whoring, uncleanness, passion, evil desire, greed of gain, which is idolatry. Because of these, the wrath of Elohim is coming upon the sons of disobedience. Don't be mastered by another. All he wants you to do is get you in obedience in one area. Things you've come out of, he's brought you out of that. We need to hide ourselves in Messiah. And we'll come back and see where that comes from in a minute, or close to the end. In which you also once walked when you lived in them. These are things we walked in. And now we have the opportunity to walk as Messiah walked, because we've died and been buried with him. But now also put off all these: displeasure, wrath, evil, blasphemy, filthy talk from your mouth. Do not lie, to each other, since you have put off the old man with its practices. These are all things the enemy would want you to walk in, to sit on the throne in your own life. Do not lie to each other, since you have put off the old man with its practices, and have put on the new one, who is renewed in knowledge, according to the likeness of him who created him. We need to walk moment after moment, every beat of our heart, as our high priest showed us to walk, according to what was written in the Torah and in the prophets, what he showed us when he walked here on the earth. We need to walk every moment after him. Where there is not Greek and Yehudai, circumcised and uncircumcised, foreigner, Scythian, slave, free, but Messiah is all and in all. Therefore, as chosen ones of Elohim, set apart and beloved, put on compassion, kindness, humbleness of mind, meekness, and patience, bearing with one another, and forgiving each other if anyone has a complaint against another. Indeed, as Messiah forgave you, so also should you. That doesn't mean you walk in disobedience with those that want to walk according to the mastery of the enemy. But you can forgive them, and you can continue on, that they might see the love of Messiah. Doesn't mean you don't correct, you don't reprove, you don't admonish, you don't encourage. Of course we have scripture that tells us that. But above all these, love, which is the bond of perfection. We must be yoked in love, truth, and loving commitment have to walk hand in hand. And let the peace, the shalom, the fullness, the wholeness, completeness of Yahusha, Messiah, rule of Elohim, rule in your hearts, moment after moment after moment. Let it master you. To which indeed you were called in one body, and be filled with thanks. We are supposed to be the body of Yah Elohim, having put on the full armor, not only in our own lives, but as the body of Elohim. Where is our breastplate of righteousness in its fullness? Where are we all walking together in the shalom of Yah Elohim that comes from that which he originally breathed? It's not in unity and error, and it's not in love, 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 and it's not in self-rule on the throne of your own heart. All these things have to come together in order for us to be the body under our King of Righteousness. Let the word of Messiah dwell in you richly, teaching and admonishing one another in all wisdom, singing with pleasure in your hearts to the Master in psalms and hymns, in psalms and songs of praise and spiritual songs. Take a look at this word wisdom, just in the Greek, down there at the bottom. It's wisdom. Higher or lower, worldly or spiritual. Let the word of Messiah dwell in you richly. Comes from your heart. Causes you to walk after him. In the shalom, the peace. because it rules in your heart, allows you to walk in it. Teach and admonish one another in all wisdom. The wisdom that comes from above, not the wisdom that comes from the world, but that comes from above. And whatever you do in word or deed, do it all in the name of the Master, Yahusha, his order, giving thanks to Elohim the Father through him. And whatever you do in word or deed, if we're doing it all in his name, for him, we're going to produce fruit, and fruit that remains. Because even though the enemy would come and it would look like deeds of Yah, he's words of Yah, we need to be so familiar with the truth that when he looms on the horizon and tries to master our lives, it would seem like shalom. But it's really just the shalom that the world gives. He comes in such a manner, through words and through deeds, that he takes what he knows about our past. He takes the fleshly human nature, and he combinatorially optimizes the situation through what he puts in our head and through the people that are around us. If they're allowing themselves to be mastered by him instead of submitting completely to Yah and resisting the enemy, he will combinatorially optimize the situation in order to get the most probable outcome. In order to get the outcome, the most probable chance of the outcome that he wants in our lives, to take us down with him, to walk in disobedience, and to sit in any area of our lives on the throne of our own lives. And he does that through word, and he does it through deed. We need to be teaching and admonishing each other in that words and the deeds that Yah has laid out before us. Everything else is vanity. Everything else comes to naught. Whose blood will we have on our hands for not teaching both truth and loving commitment? Praise Yah. Okay. Hebrews 2:14. We looked at this last time. We looked at a little bit more of it then. I just want to pull the one verse. It's so important that we see this, because this is how he works. Therefore, since the children share in flesh and blood, he himself, Yah himself, similarly came and wrapped himself in flesh, that he might die to the flesh, that we might rise with him, that he might show us how to walk it out. For the love of his bride, he came and wrapped himself in flesh, so that by the means of his death, he might destroy him having the power of death, that is the devil. What's this power of death that he has? The power of death that he has is that he knows the weapon. He knows how to master things. He can master more than one person in the room at the same time. Watch and see. If you haven't ever noticed it, just watch and see. Ask Yah for discernment. But he knows the weapon. Again, he was the covering cherub. He knew what kind of weights and measures were needed. He was assigned to do a certain thing, but it wasn't enough. He wanted to be Yah. He wants each of us to want to be Yah somewhere in our own lives, so that he can master us in that area. And then in turn, he can use us to produce things in others in the sense that they are not fruit, and fruit that remains. So that power is the fact that the enemy knows the weapon well enough to cause you death. Death in the fact that you won't be in the first, that we won't be, that someone won't be I don't exclude myself. He's trying to get everybody. I need to resist him as much as the next guy. That death is death to going into the first resurrection. Death to being, even in the second resurrection, eternally with Yah. We're supposed to die with Messiah and leave those things behind. Is that a process? Of course it is. But we need to be so familiar with the truth that when he comes along, when he thinks he sees an opportune moment or time in our lives as we're walking along, we're able to resist him because we're submitted to Yah and we know our weapon. Romans 6, 1-18. What then shall we say? Shall we continue in sin to let favor increase? Let it not be. Let it not be. How shall we who died to sin still live in it? That's what he wants. Is for us to live under the mastery of what he has twisted. How are we supposed to live in that after we've died with Messiah? Yahusha said, go and sin no more. Or do you not know that as many of us as were immersed into Messiah Yahusha were immersed into his death? Die to the flesh and live. We were therefore buried with him through immersion into death. Death to that old man. Death to that old life. Opportunity now for us to walk continually after our high priest. As Messiah was raised from the dead by the esteem of him who breathed him, so also we should walk in newness of life. We should be fed high. We should be walking in this newness of life, being fed, being refreshed, being sustained on that which he has given us to feed on. Who are we allowing to feed us? Whether physically, a person, the thoughts that come in. Leave that. For if we have come to be grown together in the newness, in the likeness of his death, we shall also be of the resurrection, the first resurrection. Who are we walking after in this age, at this time, at this moment? Are we walking in truth and loving commitment? Knowing this, that our old man was impaled with him, praise Yah, so that the body of sin might be rendered powerless to serve sin no longer. We're able to resist the enemy. We've submitted to Elohim. We've died to that. Are we going to walk in that newness? Feed on that? For he who has died has been made right from sin. No more sinning. And I know anyone that says they're without sin is a liar and the truth is not in him. But are we being mastered by it? Now we know. Now we know something. Are we being mastered by it? And if we died with Messiah, we believe that we shall also live with him. We've lost our life. We lose your life here and you'll gain it eternally. Lose the flesh. Knowing that Messiah, having been raised from the dead, dies no more. Death no longer rules over him. The flesh is not here. The enemy came and tried to use the power that he had, what he knew of the weapon, against Yahushua Messiah in the wilderness. Didn't happen. He used the word against the enemy. How familiar are we with what was breathed that we are able to fully stand up to the enemy and resist him so that his power does not reign over us, does not master us. Doesn't mean he won't come and try. Means we're fully submitted. For in that he died to sin once for all. But in that he lives to Elohim. So you also reckon yourselves to be dead indeed to sin. Stop letting it have mastery over us. But alive, fed on the word of Elohim. In him, Yah, who came to rescue us, our only master, our one head. Therefore, do not let sin reign in your mortal body to obey its desires. Don't let it reign. What's sitting on the throne of our lives? What's sitting on the throne of our heart? Who are we following? Which king? Prince? Who are we following? Be alive in the Master Elohim, Messiah Yahusha. Neither present your members as instruments of unrighteousness to sin, but present yourselves to Elohim as being alive from the dead, and your members as instruments of righteousness to Elohim. This is not just about us individually. This is about us as a body as well. Do we have our own body that we need to do this in first? Well, absolutely. But we're supposed to be this body that has died to the mastery of the enemy and is fully submitted to Elohim. For sin shall not rule over you, for you are not under the law, but under favor. There will be no, and this word rule here does not go back to the same word, but the one who is trying to have dominion over you cannot, because you have now died to that sin. You are not under the consequence of that law, but you're under the grace of Elohim. And when you see it, you repent, so you don't have the consequence of that sin. You're under the favor of Elohim. It doesn't mean there's no law to follow. What are you enduring till the end with? For? Why? How? You're just still do whatever you want and endure till the end and doing whatever you want. No. In resisting the enemy, because you're fully submitted to Yah. He's given you the grace and the opportunity to be fully submitted to him so that you have the ability to resist the enemy and avoid the consequences of death here and now and death then and there. He's given us that opportunity. Do you not know to whom you present yourselves servants for obedience? You are servants of the one whom you obey. Who are we listening to? Obedience is a moment by moment by moment thing. Whether of sin to death, we just saw he's got power. He knows his weapon. Do we know it better? Whether of sin to death or of obedience to righteousness. But thanks to Elohim that you were servants of sin, yet you obeyed from the heart that form of teaching to which you were entrusted. We were once servants to that. Should we continue in that so that grace can increase? Absolutely not. That was the very beginning. We've been entrusted with this. And having been set free from sin because you submitted to Yah and resisted the enemy, you became servants of righteousness. We became servants of righteousness because we stopped letting it have mastery over us. Praise Yah. Ephesians 2, 1 through 10. And you were dead in trespasses and sins, in which you once walked according to the course of this world, in this age. Seeing, listening to the ruler, the principality, who is trying to master everything of the air, of the spirit that is now working in the sons of disobedience. Any area of our lives that we're disobeying in, we've made ourselves Elohim in our own lives in that area to do whatever it is that we want to do, because we haven't resisted the enemy. We haven't resisted the sin in that area, and that's where he wants to keep us. Among whom we also once lived in the lusts of our flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life, doing the desires of the flesh and of the mind, and were by nature children of wrath. Sin leading to death, as also the rest. But Elohim, who is rich in compassion, because of his great love with which he loved us, even when we were dead in trespasses, made us alive together in Messiah. By favor you have been saved. He has given us the opportunity to feed on him. Nothing we can do will, quote unquote, save us. He is the one who came to save. But now we must endure, walking moment by moment by moment after him who saved us. We've heard it many times. We don't do what we do to save us. We do what we do because we've been saved. It's just true. And it's become almost cliche because we've seen it so much. And how much does the enemy like that? Beautiful truth. And he's made it kind of like, yeah, we've heard that before. And raised us up together and made us sit together in the heavenlies, because we're written in the Lamb's book of life, from which we do not want to be blotted out. In Messiah, in Yahusha, who came to rescue us, because we're following the word which he breathed, the commands and the laws, everything in its proper order. We're able to submit fully to Yah Elohim and resist the enemy, in order to show in the coming age, not this age, we show some in this age, but in the coming age, the exceeding riches of his favor and kindness toward us in Messiah Yeshua, because we're made like him when he comes to reign, when he comes to get his remnant and goes into the land, and we follow the truth into the land, and he takes out all that's opposed to him. What a beautiful picture of his riches and his kindness toward us. That's where we want to be. Not slaves to death, not slaves to sin, not mastered by the enemy, but by the shalom. Walking in the shalom. For by favor you have been saved through belief. That is not of yourselves. We're not going to sit on the throne of our own lives and save ourselves and look at Yah when he comes and say, oh yeah, we're Elohim in our own lives. Come on. It is a gift of Elohim. It is not by works, so that no one should boast. Doesn't mean that you don't endure through doing the things that Yah's called us to do. But it's not salvation. For we are his workmanship, created in Messiah Yahusha into good works. Right there. We're in Messiah to do the Torah, which Elohim prepared beforehand that we should walk in them. And what's that going to give us? Shalom. We allow the shalom to rule in our hearts, and we walk in his shalom moment after moment after moment. fully submitted to him. Hallelujah. Deuteronomy 6, 1 through 12. And this is the command, the laws, and the right rulings, which Yah your Elohim has commanded to teach you to do in the land which you are passing over to possess. Come out of the land of sin and darkness, walking in the lust of the flesh. And you've come in to the place where the soil of your heart has been tilled, the seed is planted. Your eyes have been opened. You've now been given the grace and the favor to submit to Yah Elohim, resist the enemy so that he might flee from you. He's given you the commands and the laws and the right rulings to teach us to do these things because we've crossed over. Will there be a crossing over with him into the first resurrection, into the land when he goes out and takes all the abominations? Yes, there will. But we need to do them now and submit to Yah and resist the enemy. If that's our goal, is to be with him and to be the bride. So that we fear. Well, let me go back. So the land which we're going over to possess, actually, the priesthood is the Yah's possession. We're going to inherit from Yah. We saw that with the Resh. In the last study at the beginning of this, that the head determines the inheritor. The enemy's not determining who inherits that land. So that you fear, he gave us these things to fear Yah, our Elohim, so that we would be fully submitted to him and able to resist the enemy, to guard all his laws to resist the enemy, and his commands, which is a resisting of the enemy, which were commanded to us and to our sons and to our grandson all the days of our life, to fill us, to sustain us, that our days would be prolonged. So that the seed lives in us all the days of our life, and it flourishes. And you shall hear, O Yisrael, those who would rule with El, and shall guard and do, that it might be well with you. It might be Tob with you. I think that's probably Tob there. And that you shall increase greatly in Yah, Elohim of your fathers, has spoken to you, in a land flowing with milk and honey. Hear, obey, Shema, O Yisrael. Yah our Elohim, Yah is one. Not two, not 2.5. He is one. He is one with that which he breathed for us to do, so that we would be fully submitted to him and able to resist the enemy so that he would flee from us. He is one. We are submitted to one master. And you shall love Yah your Elohim by obeying his commands in truth and loving commitment. In spirit and in truth you shall worship him, your Elohim, with all your heart. I'll go so far as to say every beat of your heart, and with all your being, and with all your might. In everything we do, say, think, every moment in time, moment after moment after moment. And these words which I am commanding you today shall be in your hearts. The authority inside of us should be Yah Elohim, who is one with the word that he breathed, which brings about the shalom which should be in our hearts. And you shall impress them upon your children, the little ones that were born to us, but there's children coming into the house of Israel all the time. We are to impress them upon them. Allow them to consume shin and chew on the seed noon, continually noon, to sharpen them, so that they have food to eat, to revive them, keep them sustained, cause them to live. We shall impress them upon the children everything that was breathed, the commands, the laws, and the right rulings in the proper order, so that they too can be fully submitted to Yah and able to resist the enemy. And shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise up. And you shall bind them as a sign on your hand. It shall be everything you do, everything we do, should be marked by the laws and the commands and the right rulings which he has spoken in truth and loving commitment. And as a sign, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes, so that everything that comes in the door of your eye comes through the filter of what Yah breathed, through his laws, through his commands, and through the proper order of everything from the El to the Ta. Because the door of the eye is where we get this knowledge and this intimacy with Yah Elohim. So if everything that comes in between our eyes is filtered through this, we will walk in the shalom of Yah. We will, moment by moment by moment, be able to resist the enemy, be intimate with Yah Elohim. We have to know our weapon in order to do that. And you shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. And it shall be when Yah your Elohim brings you into the land of which he swore to your fathers, to Abraham, to Yitzhak, to Jacob, to give you great and good cities, which you did not build, and houses filled with all kinds of goods, which you did not fill. It's going to be functional. And wells dug, which you did not dig, and vineyards, living water, the fruit of the vine, and the oil, which you did not plant, and you shall eat and be satisfied. Be on guard, lest you forget, oblivious to, forget to pay attention to, have a lack of attention of Yah, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim from the house of bondage. Be ye not again yoked into this bondage. Praise Yah. Father, I just ask Yah that you, now and going forward in my life and the lives of all those who would see this, of all those I don't even know who might not even see this, Yah, I ask Yah that you would cause people to come to an intimate knowledge, to know their weapon, Yah, that they could filter everything in their lives through the beauty of your word, through the proper order of your word, Yah, and walk in the shalom which you have given us, Father, to walk in by being fully submitted to you and resisting the enemy, Yah. For us not, Yah, to be sitting in the throne of our own lives, Father, but allowing you to have the mastery over each and every piece, part, and conglomerate as we sojourn through this world and look for the coming of you who came to rescue us, Yahushua Messiah. Hallelujah. In your name, Yah, who came to rescue us. Hallelujah, Father. Praise Yah.